Okay, good afternoon for anybody that's out there. We are just a minute or two ahead of our session, and so we're going to wait for additional attendees to join, and we will kick off in just a couple of minutes. Thank you for participating in the Glen 2 conference.
Oh, turn these lights on too. Turn this up here. There we go. There we go. That's better.
Okay, good afternoon. My name is Megan Reichert. I'm Director of Innovation for Bon Secours Mercy Health in the Northern region. And I'd like to welcome you to the State of Business Incubation Industry 2020, a view from the inside. This session is presented by the Great Lakes International Innovation Network in partnership with Bon Secours Mercy Health and the Ohio Third Frontier. Since COVID has prevented us from hosting in-person summit until 2021, today's event is the first of a series of webinars that we'll be holding between now and then to keep us all connected and engaged. At the conclusion of today's webinar, we'll give you information about future events that we have coming up. During today's presentation, if you have any questions, if you would please place them into the question and answer box. We'll address them as they come in or at the end of the presentation, depending on the content. For your information, we are recording this session for you and others to be able to access at a later date. And at this time, I'd like to introduce you to today's speaker, Mark Long. So Mark has over 40 years of experience in business incubation, entrepreneurship, consulting, and specific experience in medical devices and medical diagnostics. Mark is currently the Director of Incubation Services for the UF Innovate at the University of Florida, which includes the Sid Martin Biotechnology Incubator in Progress Park, one of the top bioscience business incubators in the world. It's a 3-time INBIA Global Incubator of the Year Award recipient. And UF Innovate, the hub, is a 106,000 square foot mixed use facility in downtown Gainesville. And it's a 2017 INBIA Mixed Use Incubator of the Year. Mark was Senior Lecturer in Entrepreneurship at Indiana University, winning the IU Trustees Teaching Award twice. And he received the INBIA President's Award for Lifetime Achievement in Business Incubation in 2014. And I'd like you all to enjoy Mark's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Megan, for the invitation and for the ability to speak to all of you today. It's certainly a pleasure and a privilege. I want to talk to you a little bit about, of course, the state of incubation today in 2020 and also the future of incubation and entrepreneurial support. I have been in incubation, as Megan said, for ages and ages. So that gives me a perspective. And also, I do a lot of consulting on business incubation, research parks, and economic development. And I've authored 7 books on those topics in the last 10 years. I've made a lot of phone calls lately. I've heard from a lot of people. I've received a lot of data, and I've read a lot of articles. And I've been asked to give talks on how COVID has affected incubation, co-working, acceleration, and what I see as the future post-COVID. So I'm going to give you a little mix of that today. All of the statistics I'm giving you are verified and validated or are publicly available. I'd be happy to provide a copy of this. I only have about 9 slides. I tend to think PowerPoint comes from an ancient Greek root word for sleep, so I try to avoid it, but I do have a few slides that may be pertinent to our discussion today. Feel free to ask questions, and Megan and Christine will direct me to answer those as we go along. So we've come a long way in business incubation since I first started in the year 2000. Incubation has been going on technically between 1959 and let's call it pre-COVID 2019. 60 years of, some might say progress, some not. We have moved from the early days of providing space to providing services. We are more of a service intensive industry to provide information, direction, all that kind of stuff for people to be able to see that. So can you guys see my screen okay? It says we've come a long way, 60 years of progress, all that kind of stuff. Let me know and we'll move ahead with that. Incubation has specialized as well into biotech, IT,
Hey, Mark.
food. Yeah.
Oh, it's Christine. It looks like you've got there you go. Just want to get you on the right screen. Yep, sure is. Thanks.
Okay. So we moved from biotech, IT, food specialization, all that as well. We've had sectors such as rural, urban, suburban incubators, and not just university aligned incubators, city, county, economic development organizations, private, public, all kinds of different incubators. Pre-COVID, we were looking at different modes of delivery of our product. Certainly place-based incubation or traditional incubation as we think of it is still pertinent today. Virtual incubation, of course, with COVID has become a big deal. It was formerly more program specific to provide specific topic coverage such as business plan writing, how to pitch, how to prepare for pitches, how to raise funds. Now, there's tons of programs I see every week on Zoom fatigue and Zoom strain and Zoom eye strain. We developed maker spaces in the last 5 to 10 years, specializing in people who actually make products and items, anything from woodworking, metalworking, electronics, so forth. And of course, co-working became the thing. Co-working became significant a lot of times because it was an inexpensive way to reach and serve entrepreneurs. Accelerators made the scene about 11 years ago. Accelerators made actual investments in companies, dollar investments, people investments. They set up the make it or break it, fail fast concept of usually somewhere between 12 and 16 weeks, maybe longer, for proof that you had a product, service, app development that would actually make it in the marketplace. There were lots of famous names in the accelerator business. Of course, most people know Y Combinator and Techstars, or at least know the words. And accelerators tend to focus on fast development. I've always said over my incubation experience that IT was a short runway of 12 to 24 months. Med device was anywhere from 3 to 5 years. And biotech and biopharma was something you didn't want to do because it took tons of money and tons of time. So accelerators tend to focus on apps, IT, and delivery. So let's move to our main topic today. Where are we now and where are we going? What effect has COVID had on it? Well, right when we turned the corner in the new year, January 2020, we'd heard some faint echoes of something going on. But in general, the facts were there were about 7,000 incubators globally and about 14,000 in the US. Co-working was certainly a hot trend, even though some of it, which we'll discuss in a little bit, had fallen off the deep end. Food incubation, as new food products, artificial meat, some other items have come up, food incubators were gaining momentum. Makerspaces were hot here in Gainesville, Florida, where I am now. There was a makerspace that was booked solid almost through half the year for time on their machines and advice and workshops. Rural growth, according to the NBIA, was up. The number of rural communities building incubators had increased. And once again, as most of you have probably heard several times from people such as Carl LePan, Carol Laufer, Chuck Wolf, Jim Greenwood, and others, mixed use incubators dominated the scene. Mixed use, first of this year, was estimated to be at about 78 to 80% of all incubators, where a little bit of lab, little bit of office, little bit of manufacturing, little bit of bulk space, so on and so forth. So that's where we were in January of this year. And then COVID-19, as the guy in Louisiana used to say, bam, it kicked it down a notch, actually. Co-working was the first item to suffer. Now, I know this happened before COVID, but the WeWork disaster, which we're not going to go there, that's an entire workshop in itself. But certainly, WeWork made everybody aware of co-working. It made everybody interested in it, and then it collapsed on itself. Lots of them have closed or been postponed or stopped purchase of a building. It's happened several places right here in Florida. But in general, coworker marketplace, which is an international survey of co-working spots, surveyed over 14,000 co-working spaces in 172 countries globally. This data is online. It was available in the Wall Street Journal. They said 72% of those 14,000 saw a significant drop in the number of people co-working. Now, this data was collected in August, September of 2020, the year we'd all like to forget. 72% saw a significant drop in the number of people. I remember a quote from one person in the Netherlands who said, we normally have 80 to 100 people in here at any given time. We're lucky to have 10 now with social distancing, and always keep one of these handy. With the current COVID situation, it dropped off. In addition, 67% of those, now take 67% of 14,000, that's a lot, had a complete drop off. In other words, almost to zero in new member inquiries, in phone calls, in emails. Hey, I'm interested in co-working. Could I come down and check out your place, so forth? That just fell out. And the worst part of the data is 50%, over 7,000 of the 14,000 surveyed spaces said we expect to close in the next 90 days. Lack of funds, lack of members, lack of revenue coming in, coupled with still having to pay the monthly rent. I've talked a lot in the past during facilities management classes, during classes with Carl on sustainability, with Megan, with other people that have been in incubation for a while. It's very difficult for an incubator to carry a mortgage, very difficult for an incubator to pay a monthly rent and still break even and still make it without a large subsidy. Co-working was no different. When they had 80 to 100 members coming in every day, hey, the money was good. Everything was going. But when that fell off and the new inquiries and new checks quit coming in, a lot closed. In the US alone, so the Wall Street Journal and Coworker Marketplace report, over 3,000 plus sites closed by October 1st. Now, I'm not sure what the term sites actually means there. I tried to research that and it was vague. I saw numbers all the way from 1,000 to 10,000. There's not a lot of concrete data out there. Co-working will definitely survive, but it will be diminished. There's no question. The demise of WeWork and some other national endeavors, the number of corporate clients, large corporate clients, large Fortune 500 companies that have said, hey, we're not doing this anymore. And the number of people that have figured out with the tools that we have now, with Zoom, with GoToMeeting, with online capabilities, productivity remains up and there's no reason to pay for a shared space. And I think as well, and we're going to explore this a little more in the next few slides, co-working will survive in conjunction with other programs. There's going to be more of a definition of mixed use in the next 12 to 24 months. Here at UF Innovate in the hub, we have a co-working space. We have an accelerator. We have a pre-incubation program. We have an incubation program, and we are building next year a postgraduate incubator building, 60 to 80,000 square foot, to allow people to move in there for 2 to 3 years tops, save up capital and go out and build or buy their own building. So the whole continuum of incubation is right here. I think we're going to see more of those programs and more of those combinations of programs as we look down the road, mostly to save money. So here's where we are right now. Certainly, it's been an economic disaster. I don't know how many of you had to work at home for a while. We worked at home for about 30 days and then came back because we have clients who cannot work out of home. I've always said it's certainly great to be able to program at home, but it's very hard to clone a mouse in your garage. So lab clients in particular at Sidmart Biotech, they need lab space. They need wet lab space, autoclaves, microscopes, ultracentrifuges, -80 freezers, everything we have to offer. Here at the hub, we have lab clients as well. They needed to be here on site. So we put together a couple of policies, which I'd be happy to share with you. I'll send them to Megan and she can send them out. One of them was basically an accession of liability document that basically said, here's the people we're registering to be able to come on site. And we're doing this of our own liability. If somebody, comes down with COVID or somebody gets ill or whatever, it's not your responsibility. We're taking personal responsibility for that. So an access and absolution of liability policy was one thing. The second thing we put together was an emergency closure policy. Yes, it is Florida. Yes, we do have hurricanes. Yes, we do have to close. And there are, again, a lot of these lab clients that get pretty antsy when we tell them the building is closed because the university is closed. So we made up a policy so they are already aware if there's an emergency, here's what has to happen. No matter what, we have to follow that policy. So putting some things in place to deal with COVID, we have a mask policy. We have now controlled access where people can't get in unless they're authorized. We have a no visitors policy without 48-hour clearance in advance. And we've stopped tours, stopped a lot of other things. The good news is, from our standpoint, is the Sidmart Biotech Incubator is 100% full. The hub is 100% full. We even have a wait list here now. I've been told that the average occupancy level of incubators nationally is 50% or below right now. A lot of incubators have had clients drop off and haven't picked them up. We've been very fortunate in Florida, pick up a lot of new companies. Did we lose some? Sure. Did some go out of business? Sure. But we've picked up a lot of new companies. So we put these policies in place to control the environment, make people feel safe, and make them feel like they had a good place to work. So here we are, November 18th, 2020. The election is over. Whew, wow, all that stuff is gone. Now the race for the vaccine is kicking into high gear, and we're all looking forward to it so we can get back to maskless business and heavy recruiting. So what do I see? And a lot of this now is my opinion. It's not data driven, but it's data I've collected personally by calling people, discussing the current situation with people, and asking people, what do you see in your backyard? So these are the three things I see as coming up on the horizon: consolidation, integration, and diversification. So what do I mean by that? And again, just FYI for you, I know everybody gets Zoom fatigue, so I try to limit my talks to about 30, 35 minutes and then take questions and have some discussion, hopefully, if you're so interested. So don't worry, there's only 3 slides left. Consolidation. We just talked about co-working programs continuing to pare back. I talked to a co-working enterprise in Wisconsin a few weeks ago, and I talked to one in Arizona, talked to one in South Carolina, and talked to 4 in Florida. A couple of them have decided to pare back physical space size, offer less hot desks, more private office, and they're focusing more on, instead of being a hotel or a drop-in space, to offer real services, mentoring, advising, education, networking, access to universities, to city, county government, to other amenities that help a company to grow. Now, you may say, like I did, I thought co-working was doing that all along. Well, apparently not. Apparently, a lot of these places were a place to hang your computer and your hat and have a place to sit and work, which is interesting since a very recent Harvard Business Review study stated shared workplaces actually make people more guarded and less likely to interact with those around them. In other words, shared workspace or hot desk actually inhibits networking. I have a great couple of pictures of co-working. I should have put them on here to show you, but it shows a long line of people at either side of a table, and every single one of them is sitting there pounding away on their laptop with their headphones in their ears and not paying attention to anybody around them. It's pretty spectacular. And believe me, I've got more than one picture like that. So it's interesting how that works. It's kind of odd that that inhibits actual, sharing, actual networking, because I thought the whole purpose of co-working was for me, maybe as a consultant, to see if I could work with other people. Maybe as a coder or a programmer to see if somebody else had a great idea that we could collaborate on. Apparently, that's not true. It actually inhibits networking. Just a reminder, I'm emailing this little deck to Megan, so she'll have it. So you're welcome to it. You can use any part of it you want. I didn't put a lot of pictures on it and stuff. It's a lot of text because, again, I wanted to keep it short and not really overdo the slides. So the last thing is rural incubation growth is going to slow because of the cost of incubation, the cost of buildings, the cost of setting up the program. I believe the EDA is actually going to slow down in funding these types of programs. I also believe that the number and quality of people coming up through the ranks to be able to run incubation programs seems to be getting limited. It's a real concern. It's sort of that next generation thing. What's going to happen next with the upcoming generation? I'm going to retire soon. Someone's going to have to step in here and run a 240,000 square foot incubation program with co-working, with acceleration, with incubation, and a research downtown innovation district, which is also under me, which encompasses about 1.8 million square feet right now and is expanding rapidly. So it's a big job. It's a lot to do. I've got a great staff. I'm very fortunate. Jim Bowie's here, Mary Shaw, people with a lot of experience. But rural programs are seeing some difficulty with obtaining talent, just like your companies may have difficulty in obtaining talent as well. Talent acquisition is always a big thing. So co-working programs will continue, but they'll be smaller and there'll be fewer of them. Rural incubation will continue, but there'll be fewer of them. And next, I think you're going to see integration. You're going to see what we're doing here at UF Innovate, the hub. You're going to see a combination of programs. One of the things I get asked about most often is recruitment and retention, and that's actually the title of my next book that I'm working on is called Recruitment, Retention, and Regrets, 30 plus years of client management in a multi-client facility. Certainly when you reflect on it, there's a few regrets. There's a few people I shouldn't have let in here, oops. And there's a few people I should have encouraged out sooner. Those things happen. But overall, I really think that there's going to be integration. There's going to be a merge of co-working, pre-incubation, incubation, graduate space, corporate incubation, mixed use is going to continue. Just like the Harvard study said, shared workspace make people more guarded. I just wanted to repeat that so you underline that. And rural incubation growth slows, but we have to build our own continuum of clients. We have to build our own, if you will, pipeline. Building a pipeline is important. My motto is always be recruiting. I'm full right now. I have a wait list for office space. I'm full out at the laboratory facility, but I still talk to anyone and everyone and tell them that anything could change at any moment. You know, when I first got here to Sid Martin Biotech 6 years ago now, it was full 100%. And there was one huge client, and the person that I was taking over for said, don't worry, they renew every year and they pay great rent, and it really makes this program sing. 6 weeks later, they fired everybody and closed that division. And Mary and I had a large vacancy to fill. Fortunately, we built that pipeline, and we continue to do it by combining programs, by integrating programs, by building our own or growing our own with pre-incubation, incubation, acceleration, graduate space, the whole continuum. I would recommend that you do that as well. So what about diversification? Well, first off, I hate to tell you this, but Zoom is here to stay. Yeah, I'd like to get rid of it too sometimes. Sometimes turn it on, and I put a static picture of myself on, and you know I'm doing something else. I'm not paying any attention to you. That's the way it works. But Zoom is here to stay, and we need to use it to address audiences we may not have been able to reach before. We may not have had a lot to offer. They may not have been able to get here. In Florida, UF Health has sites all over the state. They have a huge site in Jacksonville. One of the things I learned about Gainesville and Jacksonville is you can't get there from here. It is a wild and woolly drive, and it's about an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours, depending on whether I'm driving or somebody on my staff. So it's not that easy, but we can reach the audience over there now with our educational programs. We just gave a program on pitches and improvements, all that kind of stuff. We are able to address a wider and more varied audience with a combination of virtual, and we hope to begin our on-site programming. Let me say something about that. We had a tremendous social event going on here right before COVID. We had to stop, of course, after January, but we had Third Thursday at the Hub. We have a sponsor that pays for beer, wine, and snacks. We had networking, we had music, we had no talks, no presentations, no PowerPoints, but just a networking opportunity for all the entrepreneurs in North Central Florida. When we had to discontinue it, we were between 150 and 180 entrepreneurs here every third Thursday. And people write us today and say, I can't wait for all this COVID stuff to go away so we can get back to Third Thursday at the Hub. Having an on-site networking capability, I've been to a couple of virtual happy hours. Let me tell you, it just doesn't cut it. And if it's earlier than 4, my boss wonders why I'm drinking in my office, but that's a whole nother thing. But really, that capability to have virtual and keep it and add the on-site programming to it, we're looking forward to that. Secondarily, we're going to have to really look closely at programs for minorities, women, and veterans. Frankly, I'll tell you the truth, I think a lot of places have been giving lip service to these. Yeah, we got a women's program. Yeah, we got a program for minorities. I think we're going to have to take this more seriously and address the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. We're going to have to work harder at reaching the underserved segment of the population. We're going to have to diversify our programs to address the very basic. As a matter of fact, I have it handy right here. We actually very heavily utilize the Wendy Kennedy program, the So What, Who Cares, Why You, with beginner entrepreneurs, with people who are just even thinking about starting and doing that. Mixed use will make even more sense. Again, it's a savings of being able to put labs in a building that already has office space, that already has large bulk manufacturing space, that already has meeting rooms and conference rooms, and to get an economy of scale by putting it all in one area. I think that is going to even take more. There's going to be less specialized incubators by themselves and more incubators that try to serve a larger audience. I see shorter client residence periods. The average client in our incubator is in here about 3.25 to 3.5 years. I'd like to shorten that. I'd like to have more structured programming, more structured milestones, more mentoring and advising. We are very fortunate to have a 19-member advisory board of volunteer mentors. We have attorneys, we have accountants, we have programmers and coders. We have people who have been there and done that are serial entrepreneurs that have been successful. It's been tremendous in getting clients to accept things and work hard and meet milestones and be accountable. I think that's going to be part of the future. And as I said, and then we'll talk, have some questions, have some discussion. I see that build your own pipeline becoming an extreme diversification effort by you to build your clientele, to build your capability to show economic development. You know, one of the great things that we have here, we've kept tremendous records on IncuTrack for the last 25 years at Sid Martin. Over 25 years, our clients have brought $10.1 billion of capital and M&A monies into Alachua County, with the last 10 years, almost 7.5 of that coming in the last 10 years. So we can show the economic effect of our program, and it doesn't hurt when the boss says, what's the occupancy level? And you say, well, we're full. We're doing well. We're going to make a profit this year. Build your own pipeline. Build that continuum of care with diversified audiences, diversified programs, and a mixed use approach for building your future. So that's what I've seen from the future of talking to people. I hope this made sense to you. I would be more than happy to have a discussion now, answer questions, fire away, and Megan and Christine, I'll let you take it from here.
Okay, Mark, we've got a question about the HBR study, wondering if it took into account the culture of the specific tech community, like the differences between Boulder and LA and the Midwest.
It didn't to me. I think they were generalizing some because they took sort of a swath or cross section. They did look at the Mountain West. They did look at California. They looked at Boston. They looked internationally. Their general theory or thought was that they did not see a significant amount over time of people integrating together to cooperate and either form a business, merge their businesses, whatever you want to call it. But they said, we see people going to co-working, we see them talking to each other and so forth, but we don't see the end results of that. We do not see, hey, let's partner. That's great. Let's get together, form a company, move into the incubator. They didn't see that.
Okay, we've got a question from Carla Pan asking, should incubators go after corporate R&D clients, given that many companies realize in COVID that they need to separate their manufacturing from their innovation and R&D efforts? And if so, what value-added services should you target for that segment?
You know, I am a huge fan of the anchor tenant philosophy, as I was taught in the NBIA many years ago. We won't get into that, but I'm a huge fan of corporate R&D clients, of anchor clients. We have in our building a spinoff of Raytheon Corporation. In Indiana, I had a spinoff from Eli Lilly. Actually, a couple of them, and I know Purdue has one as well. And we targeted them by, number one, providing sort of open access for the parent company. In other words, hey, look, we're not trying to hide anything from you. We're happy to have you come down. We provide visiting offices that can be used by corporate executives, attorneys, accountants, free of charge. All they have to do is call or go online and reserve the visiting office free of charge anytime they want. It has administrative support. It has internet. It has a meeting room. Secondarily to that, we try to provide, especially in biotech, biosciences, shared equipment that, you know, if somebody left Lilly and wanted to start a startup, they may say, yeah, but I really need that piece of equipment and a -80 freezer and a UV microscope. And if I leave Lilly, I'm not going to have that. We have spent over $3.5 million providing a cadre of shared equipment. I have a part-time lab manager who trains people on how to use it, manages it. It is a huge attraction to corporate clients. Wow, you've got all this here. This is fantastic. And frankly, With Sid Martin being a rural incubator, we wrote grants to the USDA, $500,000 here, $500,000 there, and built up this equipment inventory. It's been tremendous. In addition, one last thing, a lot of these guys are brilliant scientists that really don't know much about business. So like I said, we do give them a lot of basics. I think the corporations like the fact that we say, look, if you're going to be here, you got to go through this program, you got to attend, you got to do the homework, you got to get your certificate. The corporate partners I've worked with appreciate the structure, they appreciate the education, and even if the business fails, they know that their spinoffs are going to go back to the parent company smarter and wiser about the business operations of the company than they were before. I hope that answers it.
Yeah, I think that's great. Keith Instone from Toledo said, entrepreneurship is a team sport. What do you see as specific ways incubators support team formation?
Keith, I never say that's a good question because all questions are good, but a lot of incubators suck at that. I mean, they work on enhancing the individual and enhancing the education level business-wise of the entrepreneurs, but they don't promote teams. They don't promote talent acquisition. And again, that's why we held that social event. Tremendous opportunity for people to talk to each other, hand out business cards and say, hey, I'm from so-and-so, or I've got a consulting firm or so forth. It was sponsored by Segway Realty here, and they were here talking about reload packages and how to help. I think you build teams by building networks. Now, we have to do that virtually now. Hang in there. Mm-hmm. I've been told that the vaccine is on the way. It's around the corner. But we build teams by networking. We build teams by promoting, even in our classes for early stage pitching and general business concepts, we put people into teams of 2 and 4, even CEOs. The second thing I think is significant is we work with Start G&V here in town. They worked with the chamber actually to put up a talent acquisition site where people could put their resumes on it. People could put qualifications, testimonials about of employees. We had a couple of companies that went out of business that the CEO took the time to go online and say, these people, are fantastic. Business didn't fail because of them. They would be a huge asset to you. Again, talent acquisition, big part of team building. Networking, big part of team building. Education, another part of team building. I think those things really fit together to help people feel like they're in a cooperative effort. And the last thing I would mention again is those mentors and advisors. The value that they give to this program is unlimited. It's incredible. The advice, we did a survey this summer of our clientele. We have 74 companies under roof right now. And everybody overwhelmingly said, we come here not for the facility, not even for the programs, that came in second, but first for the mentoring, advising, and direction from the staff. That's why we come to the University of Florida. I didn't tell the university that Access to University was fourth, but there you go. That's what it's for.
Speaking of universities, Jordan Valdivia from the University of Toledo said, with more companies instituting indefinite remote work policies like Twitter and Google, read that many companies are seeking to save money in the real estate expense of a physical office. Have you heard of any companies pivoting to co-working as an option for people that work from home and need to get out of their home office?
I think that's the majority of co-working right now, actually. Very, very valid point. Is larger companies that can really afford it. I mean, this is chump change to them. They're actually the ones that originally thought WeWork was a fantastic concept. They thought the shared office was a wonderful thing to get people out of the home office. I worked out of a home office for 15 years. It was no problem, mostly because my kids were grown and I was home alone during that time, so it was quiet. My wife was out working, taking care of the grandkids. So that worked well, but some people can't do that. I agree with you. There's always going to be large corporations with people in a remote workspace that they don't want to lose. We actually had a lady contact us last week. She is from San Francisco. She works for a very large company out there, and she wanted a single office in the incubator. Unfortunately, that's not our mission. That's not what we do, but we did refer to our co-working space, and she's going to take a private office there. The difference is, I think this is the lead into this, answering this question, is more and more corporations are coming to us and to other co-working spaces, particularly around the Southeast, and saying, I don't want a hot desk. I don't want a big table with shared space. COVID's still out there. God knows what could happen. Tell me about a private office we can rent for a home away from home. And if we choose to share it between employees, that's our choice. I'm seeing a lot more of that. So yeah, there's going to be some big companies that do that, like the big four can't fail companies, but there's not a lot of those out there. And again, they are still heavily concentrated in California.
Okay. Mike Frisch from the Nick in Fort Wayne asked, when you say mixed use, are you just referring to the type of services offered, or are you also referring to the application area? Do you think that companies are more attracted now to incubators such as yourself, focused in biotech or some other area?
You know, Mike, I'm referring really more to the application area. I'm referring more to biotech, to food, to IT, to aerospace, to defense, to all those types of specific application areas. I do think there's a certain level of snobbery, or whatever you want to call it, of some companies about, oh, I got to be in the biotech. I got to be in the biotech place, got to be around other biotech companies. We have a unique situation here at UF in that the biotech facility is 15 miles off campus. A lot of people think it might as well be in Idaho. They're like, oh my God, that's so far. It takes 25 minutes to get there. And the hub, the mixed use facility, is about 3 blocks from campus. So there are some people that just want that convenience level of, hey, I can run down on my lunch hour, open the door, see if everybody's working, see how the projects are going, and then go back and teach my class or hold my office hours or whatever. But there is a cadre of bioscience companies who are like, yeah, I don't want to be in a mixed use place. I want to be in a specialty incubator. My point was, I think that certainly a lot of incubators, like this hub was never intended to have lab space, but there was a group of faculty that insisted we want lab space close to campus. So we put it in, we retrofitted a lot of this space. I think you're going to see more of that popping up. I get calls all the time about, we want to build a wet lab incubator. Well, where are you? Well, I'm in a town of 6,000 in the Midwest, but we have a hospital and an interstate. That's great. Probably not a good place to build a biotech incubator. Maybe you could put one lab in there, shared use lab, see how that works. But I just don't think that's the right kind of space. So I do see more combinations of different application area space and less of the specialty standalone biotech, biomed, bioag, food, etc. There will always be some, and thank goodness they're out there and they do a great job. Don't see a lot of new ones coming.
Okay, Bonnie Dottie in Grand Rapids, Michigan was asking, do you foresee that lifestyle companies will increase and now potentially qualify for tech incubators, as they will now need more technology services in order to offer product and services online?
That's a really tough question, Bonnie, because I don't know about you guys, but we've seen so many lifestyle companies go out of business in the last 6 months. Restaurants, not national chains, but local, really good restaurants, unfortunately, have gone out of business, closed forever. Um, a lot of people who have cleaning services, anything that has to do with indoors and contact, they've had to close and lay people off and stop business. I think that post-COVID, you'll see a surge of that. Yes, I think people will get back into it. I mentioned that we had lost 10 companies and picked up 12 and we're full. We actually had a couple people come in with their stimulus check that said, hey, I'm unemployed. I got this money from the government. I've always wanted to start my own company. There's no time like the present. We've seen that, but I'm not sure they'll qualify for tech-focused incubators. I think they'll depend on tech. I mean, we're very fortunate to have a 1 gig fiber pipeline coming into this building, to have redundant router systems and redundant power. So there's a tremendous amount of IT power that we give companies, but the lifestyle companies tend to go for the general support of, how do I keep my books? How do I run my business? How do I acquire the right people? And how do I keep my head above water in the long term? So I do see a surge of them that will reappear after in the post-COVID area. I do see them still looking at a general assistance, general help, general use. It's amazing how much content's available online right now, and people go, yeah, it'll always be there, and they don't watch it. It blows me away.
Well, speaking of online, there are a number of programs that are diversifying by serving disadvantaged populations, that the digital divide is an issue for those populations. What services have you seen that have been most successful to reach out and serve them during these hardship times?
Again, a lot of it is basic business sense. What you and I would call basic business sense is, how do I get started? How do I take my idea and turn it into something? I provided a online program this past Tuesday for Synapse Florida, which is a statewide entrepreneurial gathering, on how to tell if your idea is a good idea. And I gave them a screening sheet and steps to go through to find out, do I really have a good idea, or is this just a harebrained scheme? I think people are still going to go back to those basics of, how do I start my company? How do I get money? Do I have an LLC or a C Corp? Or I always tell the story about the guy that attended one of my sessions, and he said, I've Googled PNL all day, and I said, it's not PNL, it's PNL. Basic education. I think that is still going to be relevant, and online programs give us a way to deliver that content, as long as we hold the people accountable for the delivery. The problem is putting it out there in cyberspace and hoping people get it. You have to have quizzes, you have to have reviews, you have to have group meetings, you have to have talks to make sure people absorb that basic knowledge. I think that's going to be the big factor.
Okay. Our last question is from Carl LePan.
Oh, he's killing me. He's killing me.
What's the biggest challenge facing incubators in the next 3 years to stay relevant and sustainable?
Oh, that's easy. Funding, funding, funding. I've talked to dozens of incubators who have called me. I wouldn't say hysterically, but I would say really concerned about, oh my gosh, the county just cut off our funding for next year. Oh my gosh, the university said we're going to have to do more with less. Oh my gosh, it's going to be more important than ever to find sponsors, to find donors, to connect with your sustainable base, whether it's county, city, chamber, whoever. Part of that, and part of that challenge for relevance, is knowing your numbers and giving your numbers. I mean, Carol Lawford, Carl LePan, A ton of us have preached, you, Megan, in seminars at the NBIA meetings over the years, that you need to know your numbers like the back of your hand. I have a little piece of paper that I call my cheat sheet that has M&A and capital brought in, number of companies served, percentage of companies that have graduated, percentage that are still in business, number of total employees brought into the county, statistics. The legislators love to get those. The president of the university sends an email and says, do you have some numbers I could quote my next speech to the legislator? Know your numbers, know where you are, know what you're providing, be accountable for your success to the public. And secondarily, look for alternate funding sources, for sponsors, for donors, for alumni, if you're associated or affiliated with the university, or even if you have graduates who've been successful. We needed a piece of equipment, and one of the former graduates said, we'll donate it. We'll do that. We'll do that for you. You did so much for us. We'll do that to you. So always be looking for alternate funding sources. Know your numbers and statistics. Stay focused on your mission. Don't get off to the side about it. And learn all you can. I mean, I've run into so many great people over the last 30 years. Almost makes me cry to retire, but not really. I'm going to play golf. But again, just great people in the NBIA, in Glenn, in the Florida Business Incubator Association that have given me tips, advice, content, worksheets, direction. Use that network of your friends, peers, and colleagues, and keep moving forward.
Well, Mark, I can't thank you enough for doing this webinar for us. This has been really valuable, and I know that all the people on this call have appreciated your wisdom and your time answering questions. We would like to invite all of you that are joining us today to join us for a future webinar. We're going to do, the next session in this series is Women's Centers Best Practices and Successful Strategies Through the Pandemic. That event is going to be on February 17th, 2021. And Leslie and Carl from the NIC are going to be our presenters. And we want to give you a quick reminder that in October of 2021, the Glenn Summit is going to be held here in Toledo, Ohio. This is a 2-day event that's going to offer educational and networking opportunities for people in the entrepreneurial support industry. You know, people working with incubators, accelerators, co-working, maker spaces, economic development, SBDCs, universities, and such. We're really looking forward to bringing you to Toledo and for all of us to learn from one another. We will be sending more details in email. And on behalf of the Great Lakes International Innovation Network, Bon Secours Mercy Health, and the Ohio Third Frontier, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today. Take care and stay safe.